The sun was setting over Ijebu, casting long shadows over the village. Aderemi stood in front of her father's house, her heart racing, the weight of what was about to happen settling heavily on her chest. Her father, Chief Adebayo, had been waiting for her. He wasn't going to let her leave without an explanation, without punishment. His pride was on the line. Mama Aderemi, standing beside her daughter, was silent, her face a mixture of fear and sorrow. Aderemi's knees were weak, her fingers trembling as she gripped the small bundle of clothes in her hands. She hadn't wanted to come back home. She hadn't wanted to face the father who had always called her his joy, his pride. But here she was, about to be crushed under the weight of her father's anger. If this is your first time here or you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe now and hit the notification button so you are the first to be notified when we drop our next video. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Now let us get into it. I've been patient, Aderemi, Chief Adebayo said, his voice low and cold, like the rumble of thunder. But this is too much. You've shamed this family. You've brought dishonor to my name. The village had already heard the news. Aderemi was pregnant. Pregnant out of wedlock. And the shame was more than her father could bear. "Papa, please," Aderemi whispered, her voice breaking. She knelt before him, desperate, pleading. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't choose this. Please, Papa. I need your forgiveness. I need your love." But Chief Adebayo wasn't listening. He turned his back on her, as if the very sight of her disgusted him. "You've brought shame upon this house, Aderemi," he said, his voice cold and final. "You're no longer welcome here. You're no longer my daughter." Aderemi's heart shattered. She had never thought this day would come. Never imagined that her father, the man who had always been her hero, would turn on her like this. And yet, here she was, kneeling on the ground, with the weight of his rejection suffocating her. Mama Aderemi rushed forward, her face streaked with tears, but Chief Adebayo blocked her, his eyes full of rage. "Leave her," he ordered, his voice cruel. "Let her go. She's not my daughter anymore." The crowd of villagers gathered outside the compound murmured among themselves, watching the scene unfold. Some whispered in pity for Aderemi, others in judgment. Aderemi felt every pair of eyes on her like 1,000 knives, each one digging into her soul. "I'm sorry, Mama," Aderemi whispered, her eyes brimming with tears as she turned to her mother. "I didn't mean to disappoint you." Her mother didn't speak at first. Instead, she placed a trembling hand on her daughter's shoulder, her heart breaking. "I never wanted this for you," Mama Aderemi said softly, her voice full of sorrow. "I thought you'd be happy, that you'd marry a good man, raise children. But now we have nothing. Nothing." Aderemi's world had just crumbled, and there was no turning back. Chief Adebayo moved toward the house, and the door slammed shut behind him. The villagers had seen it all, heard it all. Aderemi had been thrown out, cast aside like trash. Mama Aderemi grabbed her daughter's arm, pulling her close. "We have to leave now," she said urgently, wiping her tears. "Go, Aderemi. Go before it's too late." Aderemi nodded, taking a deep breath, her mind racing. She turned away from the house, leaving behind everything she had known, everything she had once cherished. She didn't look back, though the pain in her chest threatened to consume her. She had to keep moving. The road stretched before her, and she walked it alone, each step harder than the last. It wasn't just the weight of her father's rejection that burdened her, but the quiet whispers that followed her. The villagers who had once admired her were now turning their backs. The girl who had been the pride of Ijebu was now a disgrace. And she didn't know where she was going. She just knew she couldn't stay. It wasn't long before she found herself in a strange city, far from the comfort of her village. She had no money, no family, nothing. She wandered the streets, hoping for a kind soul to take her in, but the city was cold, indifferent. People passed her by without a second glance. She was just another stranger in the crowd. She stopped at a small roadside stall, exhausted and hungry, clutching her stomach. Mama Oseni, the woman who ran the stall, saw her sitting there and approached cautiously. She'd been watching her for a while, but didn't want to intrude. "You look hungry, child," Mama Oseni said kindly, her voice warm. "Come, sit with me. Have something to eat." Aderemi looked up, tears welling in her eyes, her throat tight. "Thank you," she whispered. Mama Oseni sat beside her, offering her food. "You're new around here, aren't you?" she asked gently. "What's your name?" "Aderemi," she replied quietly, taking a small bite. "I've lost everything." "Lost everything?" Mama Oseni asked, intrigued. "I was cast out by my family," Aderemi said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm pregnant, and they didn't want me anymore." Mama Oseni's heart broke. "Oh, child," she said softly, reaching out to comfort her. "You've come to the right place. I'll take care of you." And so, Aderemi found a new home with Mama Oseni. She helped with the small food stall, making enough to survive. She gave birth to her daughter, Oluwadamilola, a healthy, beautiful baby girl. It was a bittersweet moment for Aderemi. Though she was overjoyed to have her daughter, the absence of her family's support weighed heavily on her heart. Despite everything, Aderemi held on to hope. She believed that one day she could start again. Her daughter, Oluwadamilola, became her world. She promised herself that she would never let anyone hurt her little girl. No one would ever abandon her the way she had been abandoned. Aderemi woke in the middle of the night to Oluwadamilola's small whimper and sat up quickly, pressing the baby against her chest. The room was quiet except for the distant rumble of a passing truck. She rocked gently and hummed, whispering, "You're safe, my angel." "I'm here." The baby settled, and Aderemi laid her back down, careful not to stir her again. From the adjoining space came the creak of a chair. She paused. Mama Oseni rarely stayed up this late. Aderemi slid off the mat and tiptoed to the thin wooden door that separated the room from the small shop space. Voices. A low male voice and Mama Oseni's careful whisper. "I told you she's young," the man said, irritation creeping into his tone. "And the baby is healthy. Why are we still talking?" "Because I don't just hand over a child like a bowl of ifo riro," Mama Oseni replied, voice tight. "There must be agreement. 250, not a naira less." Aderemi's breath stilled. She pressed a hand against her mouth to stop the cry rising in her throat. The man clicked his tongue. "You think I'm playing? I said 200. Last talk. Tomorrow evening." A pause, then the scrape of a chair. Footsteps. The shop's metal door lifted slightly and clanged shut. Silence pooled in the room like cold water. Aderemi backed away, heart hammering. She looked at her daughter, sleeping with one tiny fist pressed to her cheek. She swallowed the taste of iron in her mouth. She had believed this place was safe. She had believed the gentle hands and warm stew meant kindness. But the world had taught her a new language. Kindness could be a mask, and softness could hide a knife. She bundled the baby in the only wrapper she owned and tied her tightly to her back. Her hands shook as she folded the baby's spare cloth and slipped it into a torn nylon bag. She hesitated only a moment, staring at the cracked ceiling and listening for any sign that Mama Oseni was coming. Nothing. She eased the door's latch with the edge of her wrapper and stepped into the faintly lit corridor. "Where are you going?" came a whisper from the darkness. Aderemi froze. A small figure emerged from the shadows near the sacks of beans. It was Saad, a teenage girl who sometimes helped at the stall. "Saad," Aderemi whispered back, throat tight. "Please. I can't explain. I have to go." Saada's eyes flicked to the room where Mama Oseni slept. Her jaw clenched. "I heard them," she whispered. "Run before dawn. She wakes early." "Thank you," Aderemi breathed. Saad nodded once. "There's a gate at the back. Push hard, the lock is stubborn." Aderemi's hand scrambled over the rusty latch until it gave with a grunt. The gate opened to a narrow passage, damp and smelling of old smoke. She slid through, pulled it shut, and took off into the pre-dawn. She walked until the sky turned gray, then pink. The city swelled awake, hawkers singing, danfos blaring, a generator stumbling into life. She moved along the edges of waking crowds, eyes on the ground, ears tuned to danger. She fed the baby under the shade of a kiosk, her mind racing. She wanted a place that didn't look at her like a price tag. "Good morning," a man's voice said, startling her. He was cleanly dressed, with an easy smile that didn't reach his eyes. He crouched to her level. I've seen you pass this road twice now with a baby. You're new around here. I'm just moving, she said, clutching the baby tighter. You look tired. I have a small flat nearby. Very safe. You and the little one can rest. No payment for now. He paused, letting the words sink in. My name is Anthony. Her instinct hissed. But the baby shifted, fussing, her back ached, her eyes burned. She studied his face. His smile didn't flicker. I can't, she said. Thank you. He tilted his head. People don't offer help every day. Especially not here. He stood, dusting off his trousers. I'll be around, he said, and walked away, leaving a trail of expensive cologne in the humid air. She exhaled and stood, shifting the baby on her back. She went the other direction, deeper into the market, asking quietly for any church nearby, any place that might help a mother and child. A vegetable seller raised her chin toward a side street. One church there. They help sometimes. Ask for Mama Peace. Aderemi thanked her and followed the lane until she reached a low building with a broken blue sign. A woman in a wrapper swept the compound with swift strokes. Good morning, Ma, Aderemi said, voice shaking. Please, I heard about Mama Peace. The woman leaned on the broom, scanning Aderemi's face, then the baby. What is it? I need help, Aderemi said simply. Just a place to stay for a while. I can work. I can clean. Anything. The woman's gaze softened. I am Mama Peace, she said. Come inside before the sun climbs. Inside, the coolness wrapped around them. A short man with kind eyes walked in with a steaming mug. I am Pastor Tund, he said. Sit. Drink. Talk. Aderemi lowered herself slowly. She spoke in careful fragments, sent away from home, a stranger's sweetness that concealed danger, a baby who needed safety, a heart that hadn't healed. She didn't mention the father. She swallowed that stone and kept it hidden in her chest. You can stay here for now, Pastor Tund said after listening. We have a small room. You will help in the kitchen. And eat. You will need strength to raise this little queen. Mama Peace touched the baby's tiny foot and smiled. You and your daughter will be fine. The relief hit Aderemi so hard she trembled. Thank you, she whispered. The days took a gentle shape. She washed plates in the church kitchen, swept the corridor, boiled rice, and helped sell small buns after evening service. She collected stories like receipts, women who had left men who broke their bones, girls who had run because they were sold like goats. The church was a lifeboat bobbing in a stormy sea, small but steady. When she wasn't working, she listened. Some of the women made chin-chin and meat pies to sell on Sundays. She watched how their hands moved, sure, quick, confident. Once, during a quiet afternoon, she asked, Can I help with the dough? One of the women, a broad-shouldered sister called Kike, smiled. Put your back into it. Dough respects strength. Aderemi laughed for the first time in a long time. The flour dusted her cheeks, the dough pushed back against her palm, and something inside her loosened. She took the pastries out on trays after service. People bought, complimented, returned the following week asking for more. Who made this meat pie? A woman asked, licking her fingers. It tastes like the one my late mother made. Aderemi raised her hand hesitantly. Me, with Kike. Keep at it, the woman said. You have gift. She started to stay up late, practicing fold after fold, learning how to coax the dough into flakiness, how to balance spice with sweetness. One evening, as she wrapped up fried buns, a familiar scent drifted in. Anthony stood by the gate, a plastic bag in hand. I brought diapers and milk, he said, lifting the bag. No strings. Mama Peace stepped forward, chin raised. Who are you? A friend, he replied. Anthony turned, hands raised. Peace. I'm going. He stepped out. The cologne hung behind him like a warning. That night, Aderemi lay awake, listening to the baby's breathing and the church clock ticking softly. She pressed a kiss to Oluwadamilo's head and whispered, We are not for sale. Not to anyone. Weeks became months. Her pastries grew famous in the neighborhood. People asked for them by name. She wrapped them carefully, counted the coins, and every time she passed the church office she dropped something small in the offering basket. "God bless the work of your hands," Mama Peace would say. One Sunday, after a particularly busy service, a woman in a neat iro and buba approached her table. She had calm eyes and a measured smile. "You bake these?" she asked. "Yes, Ma," Aderemi said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "I'm Clara," the woman said. "People call me Auntie Clara. You bake with care. Are you in business?" "I sell after service," Aderemi replied. "I'm saving to buy a small oven." "That's a good dream," Clara said. "Call me when you're ready to take it bigger." She slipped a card across the table. "There are people who will pay triple for exactly this." Auntie Clara returned the following week and bought every meat pie on the table. "Keep the change," she said, counting notes into Aderemi's hand. "Don't be shy about growth." After that, small miracles came in clusters. A woman from a nearby school ordered 40 meat pies for a PTA meeting. A young man wanted a simple birthday cake. The church sisters banded together and raised a small amount for a second-hand oven. The first time Aderemi switched it on and smelled the warmth of real heat, she cried quietly. Kike hugged her. "Tears are salt," she said gruffly. "They make the bread of life taste better." One late afternoon, as she carried a tray out to cool on the corridor window, her phone vibrated with an unfamiliar number. She considered ignoring it, then answered. "Hello." A slow voice filled the line. "Is this the baker?" "Yes." "Who is this?" "A friend who appreciates excellence," the voice said. "I tried your meat pie last week. I want to invest in your business. Office space, staff, distribution. I'll take 10% of profits." Her chest tightened. I don't even have a company structure." "We'll fix that," the voice said. "Meet me tomorrow evening at the Sunrise Hotel. 7 o'clock. "I can't meet at a hotel," she said. "If you want to discuss business, come to the church." A short silence. "You sound smart," the caller replied, tone cooling. "But don't let religion choke opportunity." The line went dead. Aderemi showed the number to Pastor Tund. He frowned, copied it, and tried calling. Switched off. "There are people who hunt for women making progress," he said. "Keep your eyes open." 2 days later, as she crossed the street with a crate of pastries, a car pulled alongside. The window slid down. "Anthony." He rested his arm on the frame, gaze casual. "You're shining," he said. "Business woman." She shifted the crate. "We don't have anything to discuss." "You should thank me," he said. "Without me, you wouldn't have sharpened your instincts." "I owe you nothing," she replied, voice flat. He smiled. "One day, you will realize everybody owes somebody. Even queens." The car rolled away. She stood in the heat, skin prickling. She clenched her jaw and walked back to the church. That evening, while she was sweeping, a small commotion stirred at the gate. Kike came rushing in. "They're searching," Kike puffed. "Police. 2 men at the back gate. Asking for a baby." Aderemi's heart lurched. "What baby?" Kike lowered her voice. "A woman in the area lost her child last night. People said they saw a young mother come this way." "Let them search," Pastor Tund said, appearing calm. "We have nothing to hide." Aderemi stood still as the officers walked through, eyes scanning corners, voices rough with impatience. One lifted a cloth in her small room, glanced at the baby's sleeping face, and nodded to the other. They left as quickly as they came. When the gate closed, Aderemi exhaled in a rush she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Mama Peace placed a hand on her shoulder. "Evil prowls, but God guards. Keep doing your work." Her brand, humble as it was, began to carry a name. People started referring to the pastries as Damilola's Bites because she always said, "They are for my daughter." She printed the name on paper stickers with a borrowed printer and pasted them on brown bags. She saved, bought better flour, experimented with fillings, and added small cakes in plastic clamshells. The first time a client asked, "Do you do wedding cakes?" she laughed in disbelief. Then she said, "Yes." At the pickup, the bride-to-be clasped her hands. "You made this. It's beautiful." "Thank you," Aderemi said, trying not to tremble. May your home be sweet. As she walked back to the church carrying the empty cake box, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, a photo of her outside the church gate, carrying the box. No text, just the photo. Her blood went cold. She showed it to Pastor Tund. "Block the number," he said. "And tonight, we'll ask one of the brothers to watch the gate." Night fell heavy and slow. Aderemi lay awake, listening to the murmur of crickets, the occasional bark of a dog. She thought of Ijebu, the red dust on her father's shoes, the way her mother hummed in the mornings, the smell of palm oil from the kitchen. She pressed her lips together and tasted salt. She wanted to call home. She wanted to forgive and to be forgiven. But she also wanted to be believed, and that seemed like the farthest thing from the world. In the morning, a black SUV pulled up to the church. The driver got out and opened the back door. Auntie Clara stepped out, sunglasses perched on her head, a small box in her hand. "I brought something," she called, smiling. "Vanilla essence from Accra. You'll like it." Aderemi smiled despite her fatigue. "Thank you, Ma." Clara glanced around the compound. "You can't scale in a place like this," she said lightly. "You need a real kitchen. Stainless steel tables. A mixer that doesn't sound like thunder." "I'll get there," Aderemi said. "Let me help you get there faster," Clara replied. "I have friends. Women who sponsor promising businesses. They won't ask questions." A flicker of unease passed through Aderemi. "What kind of friends?" "People with money," Clara said with a little laugh. "Isn't that what you need?" Pastor Tund walked over, hands in his pockets. "You are welcome," he said warmly. "We are grateful for your support of her talent." Clara's smile didn't waver. "I'm investing in excellence, Pastor. Nothing wrong with that." After she left, Mama Peace eyed the small box on the table. "Be careful," she murmured. "People rarely give without wanting something." That night, a girl from Clara's circle showed up at the gate, whispering through the slats. "Auntie said to give you this." She pushed a brown envelope through. It was thick. Aderemi stared at it, then pushed it back, hands trembling. "Tell her thank you," she said, "but I can't take money I don't understand." The girl looked surprised, even a little impressed. "You are stubborn," she said, and melted into the dark. Days later, Clara invited her to see a kitchen space. "Just a dream," she said. "It's good to stand where your feet will grow." It was a large, quiet space with gleaming counters and a refrigerated display. Aderemi walked through, fingertips brushing steel. She imagined trays of puff-puff cooling, women laughing as they piped cupcakes, her daughter running in after school, stealing a cookie and grinning. For a moment, the picture felt so real it hurt. Clara's voice slipped in behind her. "You must allow people to invest in your dream. Of course, there is give and take. Sometimes my friends call for favors, events to attend, meetings to cater at short notice, introductions. Nothing immoral. Just flexibility." "Flexibility," Aderemi repeated, tasting the word. Clara angled her head, studying her. "I know women like you," she said softly. "You carry fire and shame in the same chest. You want to prove you are not a mistake. Let me tell you a secret. Power is louder than shame. Choose power." Aderemi met her gaze. "Power that doesn't say where it comes from is still shame," she said quietly. Clara smiled, slow and cool. "Think about it." On the way back to the church, a motorcycle cut them off. The rider shoved a note into Aderemi's hand and sped away. She unfolded it. "We know you refused. Don't be unwise." She took the note straight to the pastor. He read it and sighed. "Some storms you outwait," he said. "We'll pray. And we'll plan." A week later, the plan of God, or fate, arrived like a crack of thunder. A popular blogger stopped by the church after a community outreach and bought a meat pie. She took a bite, her eyes widened, and she asked for a selfie. "I'll post you tonight," she said. By evening, Aderemi's small WhatsApp line was buzzing with orders. By morning, a radio presenter called to invite her for a short chat about young entrepreneurs who started with nothing. She went, voice trembling, and spoke about dough, patience, and grit. She didn't talk about the night she ran. She didn't talk about the man who smiled like a wolf. After the show, While she tied her headscarf in the station corridor, a woman approached with purposeful steps. "I'm planning a high-profile wedding," she said. "I saw your work. I want you to do the cake." "How many tiers?" Aderemi asked, forcing her hands to stay steady. "5," the woman said, a small smile. "We expect important guests. It must be perfect." Aderemi nodded slowly. "It will be." On her way out of the station, her phone vibrated again. A text from an unknown number. "We'll be at the wedding. Don't disappoint us." She showed it to Mama Peace, who pursed her lips. "You will keep your eyes open," she said. "And you will do your work. Fear must not bake with you." The weeks to the wedding were a blur. Mixing, baking, leveling, smoothing. Adora, now a chubby toddler, sat on a stool with a wooden spoon and supervised. "Mummy, cake," she declared seriously. "Yes, my queen," Aderemi laughed, dotting icing on her daughter's nose. The night before delivery, Aderemi stood back and looked at the towering white cake. Her chest swelled with something fierce and tender. She placed her palm flat on the table and whispered, "We are going forward. No turning back." In the morning, she loaded the cake pieces gently into the van the church had borrowed for her. Kike climbed in beside the boxes. "We'll deliver and decorate fast," Kike said. "No long talk." At the venue, chandeliers glittered and ushers hurried like ants. A banner at the far end of the hall showed the smiling faces of the couple. Aderemi froze for a fraction of a second, breath catching hard in her throat. The groom's smile hit her like a slap. The familiar eyes. The laugh lines. The man who had sat in her father's parlor called her "my scholar" and pressed an apple into her hand like a blessing. Mr. Andrew. Her palms went damp. The world tilted slightly. She heard Kike say, "What is it?" Aderemi swallowed lightning and forced her feet to move. "Nothing," she said. "We need to set up." She placed the tiers, steady as a surgeon, fixed the borders, smoothed the seams. Her mind was a storm, memories like broken glass, the smell of her father's cologne, the creak of the parlor chair, the low voice that had told her to keep quiet if she loved her parents. She set the last flower and stepped back, chest tight. A soft voice at her elbow. "You're early," the bride said, smiling. "You're even more beautiful than your work." "Thank you," Aderemi said, voice thin. "I follow your page now," the bride added. "You are a miracle." Aderemi looked at her, clear eyes, unlined hope. She felt the weight of a choice pressed down. She could leave, deliver, bow out, pretend the name on the banner was a coincidence. Or she could open her mouth and let the world change shape. The bride touched her arm lightly. "Are you okay?" Aderemi's throat worked. "Can I speak to you alone?" she said. "Just for 2 minutes." The bride's smile faded a little. "Now." "Now," Aderemi said, pulse beating in her ears. "Please." The day after the wedding, Aderemi couldn't shake the images of Mr. Andrew and the bride from her mind. She had been so focused on exposing the truth that she hadn't even fully processed the consequences. Mama Peace had been right. People like Mr. Andrew would do everything to hide their sins, twist the story, and play the victim. But Aderemi had learned the hard way that silence would only protect the guilty. As she walked the streets of the city, delivering pastries and collecting orders, her phone vibrated. She paused and glanced down at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. Asterisk, "You've made a mistake. Your past will catch up to you. You're not as untouchable as you think." Asterisk. The words sent a shiver down her spine. She had expected resistance, but this felt different. This felt like a warning. She stared at the message for a few moments, her breath quickening. The first part of her wanted to block the number, to ignore it, but something inside her told her that ignoring it wasn't the answer. It never was. She typed back a response, her fingers trembling but her resolve firm. Asterisk, "You've underestimated me. I'm done being silent." Asterisk. She hit send and put her phone away, trying to push the unease out of her mind. But the feeling lingered, gnawing at her. She had made a choice to speak out, to stand up for herself and for others. But in doing so, she had unknowingly opened a door to a world she didn't fully understand. The next few days passed in a blur. The wedding scandal had taken a life of its own, spreading across the media. News outlets picked up the story of Aderemi's revelation, and the truth about Mr. Andrew began to leak into public spaces. There were whispers in the streets, but there was also support. Women who had been hurt, used, and silenced began to speak up. They sent messages of encouragement, thanking Aderemi for giving them the courage to tell their own stories. For the first time in years, Aderemi felt like she wasn't alone. But as the spotlight grew brighter, so did the danger. The following week, she was delivering cakes to a high-profile event when a car pulled up beside her stall. The window rolled down slowly, and Auntie Clara's face appeared, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You've caused quite a stir," Clara said, her voice smooth, almost patronizing. "I'm sure you realize this is bigger than you now." Aderemi's heart sank. She had hoped to avoid Clara, to keep her distance from anyone who might try to control her. But here she was, standing in front of her again. "I don't need your help anymore, Clara," Aderemi said, her voice steady, though her hands trembled slightly. "I'm doing fine on my own." Clara's lips curved into a tight smile. "Oh, I'm sure you are. But I can help you grow, Aderemi. Your little business could become so much more. All you have to do is listen. Do you really think you can take on someone like Mr. Andrew by yourself? Or are you going to keep playing the victim? That's not the kind of story people remember." Aderemi swallowed, her thoughts racing. "I don't need to be a part of your world. I'm not looking for fame or fortune." Clara leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Aderemi's with an unsettling intensity. "You're wrong. Everyone wants a taste of the good life. It's just a matter of whether you take it or let it slip away. You're stronger than you think, but you won't get far on your own. Not in this city. Not in this world." Aderemi didn't flinch. She had heard the same thing from so many people, promise after promise of power, money, and success. But each time, there was always a catch. She had learned that the hard way. She was done trusting people like Clara. "I'm not interested," Aderemi said firmly. "I've already made my choice. You don't get to decide my future." Clara studied her for a long moment, her lips pressed together in a thin line. "You'll regret this," she said, her voice soft but sharp. "But that's your decision." Without another word, Clara rolled up the window and the car drove off, leaving Aderemi standing in the dust. She felt the weight of the encounter settle over her like a heavy blanket, but she refused to let it suffocate her. She had survived worse. She had survived being thrown away. She wasn't going to let anyone, least of all Clara, make her feel small again. Later that evening, as Aderemi sat on the church steps, sorting through a stack of orders, her phone buzzed again. It was another message from the same unknown number. She hesitated before opening it. "Asterisk, you're playing a dangerous game. You won't make it out unscathed. Asterisk." Her fingers tightened around the phone, the anxiety creeping back into her chest. She had to ignore it. She had to stay focused on what mattered, her daughter, her business, her future. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming, something she wasn't prepared for. The following day, she received an unexpected visitor. Pastor Tund called her into his office with a serious look on his face. "Aderemi," he began, his voice low, "we need to talk." Aderemi frowned, sensing the weight of his words. "What is it?" "I've been hearing things," he said, his brow furrowing. "There are people asking questions about you, about your past, about the things you've been through. I'm concerned, Aderemi. This isn't a small thing. The media's been kind to you, but others are starting to take an interest in your story. And not all of them have good intentions." Her stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Someone's been digging. People close to Mr. Andrew are trying to discredit you. They're digging into your past, looking for anything they can use against you. They want to shut you down, Aderemi." She felt a rush of panic. "But I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth." "I know that," Pastor Tund said gently. "But the truth doesn't always protect us. People will fight back, and they will use anything they can. You have to be careful. You can't let them get to you." Aderemi stood up, her hands clenched into fists. "I'm not afraid anymore. I won't hide. I won't let them control my story." Pastor Tund looked at her, his eyes full of understanding. I admire your courage. But remember, this fight isn't just about you anymore. It's about all the women who've been silenced, all the girls who've been hurt. You're not alone in this. I know, Aderemi said quietly. And I won't stop. Not until everyone knows the truth. As she left the church, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She couldn't afford to be afraid. Not now. Not when so many people were depending on her. She would stand tall, no matter who came for her, no matter how hard the fight became. The next few days were a whirlwind. Her business grew as more and more people flocked to her stall, wanting to taste the pastries everyone was talking about. The media buzzed with her story, but Aderemi didn't let it consume her. She focused on the future, on the bakery she was going to build, on the life she was going to give her daughter. But the threats didn't stop. Each time her phone buzzed, each time a new message came through, her heart skipped a beat. The threats were becoming more intense. More specific. Asterisk, you're in over your head. You can't hide forever. Asterisk. Her nerves began to fray. She kept her eyes open, stayed vigilant, but there was a gnawing fear she couldn't shake. She was in this fight now, and she wasn't going down without a battle. One evening, as Aderemi was closing the stall for the night, she noticed a figure standing by the corner of the street. It was Anthony, the man who had once offered her an escape and then tried to trap her. "What do you want, Anthony?" she asked, her voice cool but her heart pounding. He smiled, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "I'm not here to fight you, Aderemi. I just wanted to offer you one last chance. You're in too deep. Come work for me. I can protect you." "I don't need protection from people like you," she said firmly. "Stay out of my life." His smile faltered for a moment, but then he straightened, as if realizing this was no longer about seduction or manipulation. "You'll regret this. No one gets away clean. No one." "Maybe I will regret it," she said, her voice steady. "But I will never let you control me again." He narrowed his eyes, but didn't say anything more. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the darkness. Aderemi stood there for a moment, her heart racing, but a part of her felt a deep sense of relief. She had done it. She had stood up to him. And she wouldn't let him, or anyone, take control of her again. She had a fight ahead of her. A long, difficult battle. But she was no longer afraid. She knew who she was, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that away. She would rise, no matter what came next. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next video.